Just to be clear, it's not a yes-no equation. It's not one call that makes these deals happen. It's a long conversation, and there can be twists and turns along the way. Speaking of twists and turns, Blake Wheeler's had a real week. 13 years with Winnipeg, bought out by the Jets, but he's found a landing spot on the first day of free agency.
Yeah, and it's the New York Rangers, as we speculated on earlier, and it's a deal that makes sense for both sides, clearly. It's an $800,000 salary with a $300,000 max bonus structure, and I think we can understand why the New York Rangers would have interest in Blake Wheeler. I mean, he's a rugged playmaker. He still has some gas left in the tank. I mean, it's limited at where he's at in his career, but he brings the leadership. He can play on special teams. Again, the character is there, and there's also strong familiarity and a bond with Jacob Trouba of the New York Rangers. But, Blake Wheeler really navigated this process. When he was bought out by the Winnipeg Jets, he made it clear that he wanted to shift over to the Eastern Conference. Now, I know the Nashville Predators during draft week this week tried to make a trade with the Winnipeg Jets to acquire Blake Wheeler. There probably would have been some salary retention where Winnipeg was concerned. So the deal didn't happen. Hence, the Winnipeg Jets needed a bit more time to buy him out. But he lands in New York in the Eastern Conference where he wanted to be.
And expect a thunderous ovation when the New York Rangers go to Winnipeg and Blake Wheeler returns, the former captain of the Jets. James?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, rough ending, the way things went down the last year, being stripped of the C and how things fell apart with that entire core, really, but still a good hockey player. And what do you make of that addition to the Rangers?
I think it could be a good thing for Blake Wheeler and the New York Rangers. There's no pressure of being the captain of a Canadian team. He's an American guy. The New York Rangers is probably an organization he always wanted to be a part of and play for. And he can just be a third-line winger that plays secondary power play units and just go out and play hockey and not have everything on his shoulders. He's just got to go out and compete and try to contribute offensively. It could be a good fit. Some of these guys that are just bought out and teams have told we don't want you anymore, there's going to be some positive stories where it's like they get a different deal on a different situation and they're going to make a positive impact on a different team. And Blake Wheeler could be one of those scenarios.
And remember, the bonus structure, bonuses were in the salary cap era have kind of disappeared. But if you're over 35, you can sign a deal that has incentive laden and
if you've been injured the whole year prior, like Connor Brown will get as well if you're under 35. I think it's a nice insulation as Cabo Caco and Alexis Lafreniere are still trying to find their best offensive game. And they're looking for some of those wingers to elevate, to be able to play with the guys that you really know and count on in the top six. Blake Wheeler, as tough as his year was, he had 55 points in 72 games. Like, I know he plays a big role in tons of mids in Winnipeg, but he's not what he once was, but he's not terrible. Mm-hmm. And to get a guy who can play in your top six and be a complementary player, not a driving force anymore, for $1 million plus bonuses.
And the holes with Tarasenko and Kane, too.
And when you need to fill in some of your top six winger situations, that's a great option to have.
Craig Button, your take on this?
I think it's a really good addition for the New York Rangers. To Mike's point, he's a solid player. He's not a frontline player like he once was, but he's a solid player. The other thing about Blake, he's really smart. You can put him in different spots in your lineup. You can play him with different players, and he's going to play at a really productive rate. And if you need him the penalty kill, he can do that. If you need him on the power play, he can do that. And to me, this is the type of player coming off of a buyout that you're looking. He wants to prove himself. He wants to show that he can still be successful. And the New York Rangers, after their disappointing playoff run, I think Blake Wheeler's a really nice addition. You know where else are you to look good? Toronto.
The bonus thing would have worked there?
I don't know. Listen, we all talk
carry
about the
over to
bonus.
next year, though.
Make it work. Don't tell me what you can't do.
Like, you're a doer. You get things done, Craig.
You shouldn't have signed Ryan Reeves.
I'm always so worried about the money. Okay, so that is the latest. JVR to Boston. Any thoughts there?
Boston's got to go bargain shopping. They have almost no money left. And they got guys they need to sign. Swayman's a real wild card because he probably deserves more money than Omar, who makes 4.8. He probably deserves 5.5 as the backup. Their goalie situation is tough, and their bonus structure from last year has carried over to this year. So they don't have a lot of money to play with. They need cheap forwards that can play. JVR is a no-frills guy. He'll still get you 18 goals and 38 points playing with top guys. But who's the centerman? That's
a big question.
Things happen fast.
Two centermen.
Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle.
Things happen fast. He was the top guy, top left winger in Toronto, and now he's going to same thing as Blake Wheeler. You want to be a third-line left winger, try to score 10 or 15 goals, secondary power play guy. He could probably do that.
Yeah, and talk about going to a much better team. So expecting a much better year.